Welcome to Talking Point, a podcast brought to you by Jordan Cullen. Here you'll find everyday conversations about everything and nothing in particular. On the first episode, we're joined by Bob Katter, member for Kennedy since 1993. We talk coronavirus, live export, religion and more. Let's get into it. Bob Katter, thanks for joining me. Amid all this coronavirus noise, what can you tell me is on your radar in terms of what's grinding your gears? What are Australians facing?
There is a lot of people that I listen to said the radical and very oppressive regime that was imposed upon us was necessary. Now, I don't know whether we're in our second or third month of this now, but to place the population of North Queensland, I'm not going to talk for the rest of Australia, the population of North Queensland under house arrest, de facto house arrest, and keep that up for 3 months when, quite frankly, there are no coronavirus cases in North Queensland. So, I mean, what justification do you have for keeping the suppressive draconian regime in place? Now, I'll tell you the justification. Justification is you contaged, you sent the contagion, you, Madam Premier, Madam Deputy Premier, your government sent an officer of your health department, from a high contagion area of Brisbane into a no contagion area, North Queensland.
Yep.
Now, I am very familiar with the outbreak of diseases in livestock, cattle, sheep, pigs, chooks. I'm very familiar with the outbreak of diseases in plants. And in both cases, you need immediately to quarantine off the contaminated area, or if it's very widespread, to quarantine off your clean areas. The effort made immediately to keep them clean. In this case, they have turkey trampled both principles. They have married up a high contagion area, Brisbane, with a no contagion area, North Queensland.
Yep.
You must understand the geography of North Queensland. We are an island. We are like Tasmania. We're not surrounded by sea, but we're surrounded by 400 kilometres of nothingness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the average rainfall there is about 10 inches, and that means most years it doesn't rain much at all. The area, huge area below Charters Towers, is called the Uplands Desert, and it's not called the Uplands Desert for nothing. So there's no one living there.
For sure.
We're an island, and we're an island free of this contagion. The only cases we've had is by you allowing a person from a high contagion area, Brisbane, to go into a no contagion area, North Queensland. And the last time you did it, you actually sent an employee of your government, and the irony, horrific irony, this was a health worker, into our fortress of protection, the Cairns Bay Hospital, the biggest hospital in Northern Australia. This is the Cairns Bay Hospital. You sent the contagion into that hospital. So
Bob,
the only cases we have are the 4 cases of the Cairns Bay Hospital. So we don't have the contagion. Why are we under de facto house arrest?
that person, do you think they were travelling for a legitimate reason? Obviously, it was medically orientated.
I think every person that leaves Brisbane and comes to North Queensland has a valid reason to do that. I mean, there's 1,000 people a day, I'll rephrase that. There's over 700 people a day leaving Brisbane, a high contagion area, and going into Moranbah, where there are 3,000 or 4,000 miners working in the mines there.
Mm-hmm.
So you can contage that area.
Yep.
You'll light up the whole of North Queensland.
Yeah, that's
now,
right.
what's the imposition? All right, you want to live in Brisbane and work in North Queensland? I'm sorry, mate. From now on, you'll have to live in North Queensland. Too bad, so sad. And those were the laws in Queensland and New South Wales, and Western Australia, right up till the late 1990s. So 20 years ago, that was the law. If you wanted to work in the mine, then you lived in that area. No flying, they were all banned. But I'm not advocating the banning of fly-ins, except from a high contagion area, Brisbane.
Do you think it was a matter of convenience for the federal government to do it state by state instead of considering like regional and rural communities?
I think the federal government has put a lot of pressure on the state government. I think that senior people in the health department have put an awful lot of pressure because they know the principle of cordoning off and protecting the areas that are clean. I mean, it's not like we're small here. We're a million people. We're twice the population of Tasmania and almost as big as South Australia and Western Australia.
And what would you say is most important, sorry, Bob, for your electorate of Kennedy? What's been really punished by this action at the moment?
I speak on behalf of North Queensland here. I don't think I can take out my own electorate and handle it differently. So I'm spokesman here for North Queensland. And speaking on behalf of the people of North Queensland, I know one attempted suicide. Whether the person ends up dying or not, I don't know. And I asked the doctor what the situation was, and he said cabin fever. When she was restricted from access to other people, she regressed to where she was some years ago. Now, there's people going to the doctor, they've got 20%.
Mm-hmm.
All the surgeries down 20%. Now, there are people going in there to be tested for breast cancer. There are people going in there to be tested for prostate cancer. If you get them early, you survive. If you don't, you die.
Yep.
And my father died under these circumstances. It was the big airline strike, and he wouldn't jump the queue. So he was supposed to go down there for an operation.
Yep.
It was 3 months later before he could get down there, and cancer had got away and he died. So I don't know how many Bob Katters are out there now in situations where they're going to die because they didn't go and see the doctor.
I think that's hard, isn't it? I mean, they're talking about only doing emergency surgery and elective lists have been cut, but you would think that people that needed it would be prioritised in that sense.
But no, you're missing my point. They are not going to the doctor. They are very scared to go outside their house.
Oh, yeah, yes, of course.
Very scared. So that, why have people going to the local doctor's surgery by over 20%? And this, I've been ringing up all the doctors, getting them to be aware that we want this quarantining, that a group of doctors have urged and pushed for quarantining of North Queensland. And I want, to let them know so that they can sign up.
I just want to take the focus off Corona just for a second, if that's okay. Just got a couple of questions from listeners. Mandy asked, this is more general, do you think politicians are portrayed fairly in the media? Now, I know you get a lot of flack for your very direct approach in terms of perhaps, gun stores reopening to support primary producers, that sort of thing. At this time, I think it's really common for the media to be highly critical of politicians. How have you found it personally coming out and speaking on these issues?
You're very embarrassed to say this. I've never been on a wave of popularity like I'm riding at the present moment. And I just do what I think is the right thing to do and let the cards fall as they might. I've taken stands in the past that have made me extremely unpopular.
For sure.
But I don't know. Obviously, the KAP, the political party I belong to, is saying a lot of the right things and fighting a lot of the right battles, obviously. But we just come back from a big supermarket, and I reckon that one person and four in the supermarket wanted to say hello to me, which is not normal.
Yeah. I guess, would you say it's just the approach that you have and I guess the way you handle things and questions in the media that leads to that relationship with voters?
I don't know, and I sort of don't want to speculate, but
yeah.
I just told my son, I said, never ride the horse of popularity. It's the horse that'll buck you every time. And I'd like to think we try and practice Christianity, and there's the crowd out there one week saying, oh, you are the Lord, you're the Most High, and throwing down palms and throwing himself on the floor.
Yeah.
Next week, exactly the same people.
Yeah.
They're out there screaming and crucifying. So don't worry about popularity. It comes, it goes. Just do the right thing as you see it, and let the cards fall as they might. But on this issue, I am very passionate. We are suffering a de facto house arrest. There will be, I would estimate, something like 1,000 businesses that are going to go broke and bankrupt. 6 and 7 generations of hard work gone up in smoke because of some politicians indulging themselves. Now, I wouldn't have said that 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But now, there's just no cases here. And the only cases we've had are cases that people that you have allowed to come from a high contagion area into a no contagion area, breaking the most basic and fundamental rules of any epidemic, whether it be in plants or animals or human beings.
And second of 3 questions here, have you downloaded the COVID Safe app, and what's your thoughts on that?
I said that I'm not going to do it. I'll go to jail. They can do what they like to me. I'm not doing that. You sacrifice your freedoms in times of emergency, times of warfare, times of epidemics. You sacrifice your freedoms. But you just want to be careful here that the price you're paying is too high. And I think that where you are giving the power to the government to track your every movement for the rest of your life, no way. And what's our protection? A politician's promise.
Yeah, well, that doesn't go far, does it?
They won't continue it on, and no one will get access to that information. A politician's promise. Well, if you're prepared to sell your freedom out for a politician's promise, I suppose you'll deserve what you get.
Yeah. Just touching on the economy, Stephen's asked, given the economy in Australia, super is suffering, can we create incentive for super funds to invest in Australian companies? Is that something that you've had
look, I'd love to get the name of that person if we could ring my office, because that is a drum that I beat every day of my life. Before I went into Parliament, I was working my mines that I owned personally, and I had cattle. Later on, I had a lot of cattle country. That's what I was doing. And also I had an agency where I sold superannuation.
Oh, wow.
And there was 60-40 rule in those days. So when I sold you a superannuation contract, 60% of that money would go into government securities, to government instrumentalities. And it would then be used to build railway lines into the mines, so we could open up the mines. It would be used to build giant power stations, so we could have cheap power and an aluminium industry. It was used to build beef roads, so we could get our cattle out and open up areas of Queensland that had never ever been opened up to settlement. That's what the money was used for, and it was rock solid safe. Unless the government went bankrupt, 60% of your savings was safe. Now, 51% of that money is going on a roulette wheel called stock market. It was $60 billion a year. I think it was 25 years ago. It might have been 20, it might have been 30, but let's say 25 years ago, it was 60,000 million. It is now 1,670 thousand million. So 60,000 million, it's 1,670,000 million.
Wow.
So what you got is a giant Ponzi scheme called the stock market. And that is your retirement. That is the security in your retirement. If that was going into government securities, as it was before, then it was 60% secure.
Yep.
Now it's not. And that's the money we need to build a rail line into the Galilee.
Yep.
And create 20,000 jobs
Mhm.
in North Queensland. That's the money we need to build the Hells Gate Dam. I should have mentioned dams. That's one of the major uses of that money was for irrigation dams, development dams. But, government money now is spent on absorbed money projects, football stadiums, tunnels in Brisbane, ring roads, fates and ferry floss.
Do you think
anything to buy boats.
Do you think
they're absorbed money projects? A rail line into the Galilee is a make money project. Hells Gate Dam is a make money project. Copper Stream to take grid system power out to the biggest mineral province on earth, in my home country, Cloncurry, Mount Isa. That's a make money project. That'll make money for the people of Australia forever. And whatever gentleman asked that question, God bless you, my son, you're a good Australian and you are a very intelligent Australian.
Do you think the privatisation of assets is part of the problem, that these things are being taken away from the state and then that's causing further issues?
40% of the Australian electricity industry is owned by the Chinese.
Okay.
Now, 17% is solar panels, and they come from China.
Mm-hmm.
So China owns 70%, is that right? 40, 50, 60% of your electricity industry in Australia is owned by a foreign country.
Okay.
Now, if that's a good thing, and that foreign country is a dictatorship, one of the very few dictatorships left on earth, and has very expansionist policies, which we are watching in the South Pacific now. So who is running this country? Who's driving the bus? Either an idiot or a traitor or a very, very stupid person. And I don't mean to reflect on Scott Morrison. He's only been there for 10 minutes. But we must certainly hope he takes control of that wheel.
And I see your book is in the background there. Have you had a read of Malcolm Turnbull's new book at all?
I read excerpts from it, and it just makes me sad. Malcolm, you were Prime Minister of our country, and there's your thoughts and revelations, and, just bitter hatred, why do that? I watched Kevin Rudd the other day for all Kevin's shortcomings. They kept saying, but wouldn't you say such and such about so-and-so? He wouldn't say a bad word about anyone. He's obviously made up his mind, his own mind, that, he's a Christian and you love your neighbours, you love even your enemies. And I thought he was putting that in practice in the interview, and good on. We finished that book. I just talked about my book, but they're just stories of Australia, put together in a sequence.
Yep.
History book. And I'm very proud of, First Australians, Copperdoons, and they held the occupation at bay for 60 years in my homeland. They were fighting for their homeland. And they're very courageous people. And they inspire me. And then there's the great battle to get pay and conditions with worst paid workers in the world. 130 of us went in cane fields, never came back out. 130 of us went down the mines, died down. We were the most oppressed. We came out here to find gold. We didn't find gold. We were trapped out here in the middle of nowhere. We had to work for nothing. And it was a great union movement that got us decent pay and conditions. Now very few people die in the days of hand cutting. Very few people died down there, and very few people died in the mines when we formed this great movement called the Labour Movement. And then there was the Great Depression, which we took the advice of Otto Niemeyer from England. What a terrible thing. We had the worst depression of any country on earth by a long way, and we never worked our way out of it. We just went straight into the war. We listened to the big corporate, the Bank of England. In this case, we took our advice from the Bank of England. So the Americans now, this is important. This is important, what I'm telling us. We have a depression now created by coronavirus and the actions that governments had to take. We now have a depression. Now, everybody knows what you do in a depression.
Yep.
John Maynard Keynes did it in England, Jacques did it in Germany, Takahashi did it in Japan, Eccles did it in the United States, John Kenneth Galbraith in the United States. But in Australia, we built nothing. America completed the building of the biggest dam built in human history. And it started off agriculture. It kicked off the creation of agriculture in California. California is now the biggest food producing state on earth. And it all started with cheap labour during the Great Depression. They built the TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, deepened the Mississippi River. So you could come upriver in big boats, ships if you like, all the way up for 1,000 kilometres up that river. They widened it and deepened it. And it made the cheapest highway in the world from the heartland of America out into the sea and overseas. Tennessee Valley Authority also built enough hydroelectric power stations to power the whole of Australia, and it's cheap and forever. They planted over 100 million trees in the degraded Midwest to resuscitate it. They did all these wonderful things in the Depression. In the Depression, we did nothing. We did nothing at all. We just lived, stayed alive, a bit like animals. 40,000 Australian families lived under trees. Now, you're in a depression now, and you're going to suffer the same sort of fate unless you undertake massive public works programs. Now, if you take those programs on absorb money projects, repeat again, I think there's 3 giant football stadiums being built in Sydney. There's, $5 billion tunnel being built, the most tunnel city on earth, Brisbane, and the most ring road place on earth, Melbourne, is getting another ring road. Yep. Well, if you want to keep doing that, the country is bankrupt. You just can't keep spending money when none comes back. Now, North Queensland, if we start coronavirus free, you immediately start those public works programs here because you can't do them in the metropoli. You do them in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane. Those are high contagion areas. You can't bring people together, not even I would advocate bringing a lot of people together in a high contagion area. That's many months away, not a year away. So you need to get going now, and we've got the shovel-ready schemes. I mean, North Queensland has the shovel-ready schemes, and I'm just going the shovel-ready ones. Wells Gate, Rail Line in the Galilee, owned by the people of Australia, not by one foreign corporation. They'll strangle down.
Yep.
I'm not knocking Adani. I'm pro-Adani. But that railway line owned by one foreign corporation strangled down the Galilee. We want it opened up. And we want to own it up so that we, the people of Queensland, and hopefully North Queensland, get the benefits out of it. So you got the shovel-ready schemes. We got the answers to your depression. Please give us a go.
And
we're been run from Brisbane. Please give us a go.
And would you say, I know mining's an important part of Northern Queensland's economy, but obviously we're hoping that the tourism sector would bounce back as well, in the coming months. And do you have any proposals around other industries and how you think they'll fare?
Well, Hell's Gate is not an agricultural development. It is industrial development. It will produce 7% of Australia's petrol. That's very clean petrol, and it'll clean your existing petrol, ethanol. There's 60 million litres a year now being produced out of Dalby as intercepted. Listerine, marshmallow with ethanol, for example. But it'll produce 7% of Australia's petrol. Highly super clean, forever. Clean, no emissions forever. It'll produce 1.5% of Australia's electricity, all of North Queensland's electricity, and it will produce 8% of Australia's beef production through forage sorghum and through the CO2 emissions are not emissions. They're not a byproduct. They're a product badly need to feed algae. And that algae becomes stock feed with pigs, chooks, fish farms, and of course cattle. So it's an industrial complex. Please God, there'll be great canneries there operating in giant networks.
On the subject of cattle, sorry, Bob, what is your take on live export? Do you think that's something that will continue into the future?
If we can increase our production by 30 or 40%, the KEP policy, the policy of our party, and it's, the state blokes to declare the state policy, as I understand it, every station property gets 300 hectares of irrigation. Owner-operator, not corporates. The owner-operator stations get 300 hectares of irrigation. That plus Hellscape, plus a couple other things, like Hewin's irrigation project, will nearly double our cattle production. Now, I think it's very desirable that we have two markets rather than one. So to have the live cattle market as well as processed beef market is vital to that industry. To put all of our eggs in the processed beef market is not desirable. And the future for Australia, particularly in beef, is the VIP countries, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines. People keep talking about China. I mean, why do you keep doing that? Our neighbours have got 600 or 700 million people in the VIP countries. Why don't you talk about them and develop them and make them strong too? I think beef industry, one agricultural industry is a pretty bright outlook. And if we can get ethanol introduced in Australia, the same as it is in Brazil, I think sugar has a very bright future as well. And as for fruit and vegetables, any country that would have most of its fruit and vegetables coming from overseas is not a country. It's a country without pride, without backbone. And I sadly relate to you. For the last 7 years, our country's been a net importer of fruit and vegetables.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
We find that hard to believe, but that's the ABS Bureau of Statistics official figures.
Is that because farmers are getting a higher dollar to send overseas, or what's the backbone of that issue?
Let's take bananas. And we've fought a tenacious battle with the Mackays, who are celebrating 75th anniversary of farming under Robert Mackay's leadership, and I was given the great privilege of playing a role. We kept the bananas from coming in from overseas. But, we pay $18 an hour for our workers, which is pretty lousy pay, really. But we're up against people who get paid $5 a day. How are we going to compete against that?
Yeah.
Well, all right. You got the choice of either taking your workers down to $5 a day and let them starve to death, or alternatively, bring the stuff in from overseas.
Yeah.
So we've chosen to bring the stuff in from overseas, and that's what's happened in every industry. God bless the Mackays, who are celebrating the 75th anniversary, because thanks to them, Dick Pratt, the famous Dick Pratt, we are protected at least in the banana industry. But if the bananas come in, they bring in 12 diseases, banana diseases we don't have. How many diseases for our food and fauna? I wouldn't know. There'd be untold massive disease that comes in. You talk about clean green image, you can't have it if you keep this up, bringing stuff in from overseas. It would be just as dirty as they are in the end.
Not to mention the costs, environmental costs of transport and those things. Obviously, if we sourced our fruit and veg locally and our meat locally, it would be, more beneficial. But it's unrealistic to expect the government to subsidise wages locally, because that would be a crazy expense, and I guess you can't do that sort of thing. So,
I think you make a decision Mr. Weber, and in our party policy, it says we are a Christian nation. This is our third policy statement. We are a Christian nation. And it goes on then to explain that or define that. We have a responsibility to our fellow Australians. And we have a responsibility to see that the people that work hard and pick those bananas, that they get a decent living from it.
Yep.
And a decent living from it means that they get, an award wage arbitration. Our farmers suffer because they've had arbitration taken away from them. But if arbitration is taken away from the employees, then you will have a country that will be in grinding poverty and in a depression because there's no purchasing power. People of Australia have had the purchasing power taken away. And the government very wisely, I take my hat off to them, they realised that you must provide purchasing power. And Rudd and Swan got criticised in the GFC, but they did the exact right thing to get money into the hands of people to keep up that purchasing power. But you can't keep pumping it up, Jordan. And therein lies the problem, and therein the solution lies with developing a great mineral field in my homeland, northwest Queensland, and developing the great water resources. 4 of the 6 major rivers in Australia are in North Queensland.
Yep.
3/4 Australia's water is in North Queensland. So, there's the resources. Half Australia's coal is in the Galilee, untouched.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to tell Chinese and Indians that they can't switch their lights. But, if you say, should we be doing something about CO2? Yeah, actually, I believe we should. And that's what Hell's Gate is, zero emissions. We produce 7% of Australia's petrol, 8% of Australia's beef, 1.5% of our electricity, zero emissions. So we're doing our job. How about you people in Canberra doing yours? And as for the people in Brisbane, I've just got to the stage where I feel like splitting off.
Sorry, just to relay that, zero emissions, how is that so?
When you burn the sugar cane to produce electricity, boil the water, spin the generators, produce electricity, you, of course,
offset.
Burn off CO2. CO2 comes off from the burning process. Hydrocarbon becomes carbon dioxide. And but we need the CO2. Algae lives on water, sunlight, and on CO2. If we put the CO2 into these ponds, then the algae will grow, and the algae creates stock feed for chooks, cattle, your friendly dog, wild dog, and we'll go ahead for 20 years, Nelly. Chooks, pigs, cattle, fish, prawns, all of those things are fed on a high protein regime, which you will get from that algae. So new technologies, the Israelis are running 100 mile an hour with these new agro technologies. The Americans are running at 100 mile an hour. Let's get in the race. And Hell's Gate is where we get in the race. And I think that Urana will follow fast on Hell's Gate. And, of course, the Mitchell River, the biggest river in Australia, we don't use a single drop of water. And that just is immoral. And it won't continue. Someone will take it off us. It's immoral and it's wrong. And we should be developing the water of the Mitchell River, which starts at Cairns and goes across into the Gulf of Carpenter area.
You touched on some Indigenous stories earlier. Do you have, are you across Indigenous issues at the moment in terms of health? What would you say is the challenges there?
Jordan, I don't want to, criticise the minister. I don't want to criticise the leader of the opposition. You try and be positive. But the Prime Minister promised me when I had the balance of power we would get market gardens. I mean, there are 400, maybe 600 or 700 people dying in the community areas, the Palm Islands, which is the Pomperas, Torres Straits. They're dying from malnutrition-related diseases. Now, they weren't dying 30 years ago. Why weren't they dying 30 years ago? Because the missionaries who protected us, I identify often as First Australian, the missionaries who protected us from being murdered and slaughtered and pillaged and raped and everything else. The Christian missionaries defended us and protected us. We're alive today because of them. But they also were enlightened and realised that if we forage for food, we're going to get ourselves killed here. So they put in these market gardens, so we would have nutritious source of nutrition in all of the mission stations. And so all of the mission stations, all of them had market gardens. When we, the state government, eventually had to take over the missions, we kept the market gardens going. Now, the incoming cry for the poor and downtrodden socialists, they closed down the market gardens. So now we have maybe 400, maybe 1,000 people. Look, it's pretty simple, really. I mean, you just get an area of land, we bring in agristologists and the experts in nutrition, and they tell you what to plant there, and the agristologist tells you what you can plant there and grow there successfully. And you pay someone to plant and grow it. Now, you cut off another 4 or 5 blocks, and you get local people who will get work in this field and become expert in this field, and they will take up the other areas as market gardens as well, or they might just become conventional banana farms or pineapple farms or whatever. But it will also grow the economies. But, of course, I feel ashamed as an Australian. You can't get a title deed. You're not allowed to own land on Palm Island. Now you are. But the process is so bad. It's effective. So you can't. When I was minister, the blokes in charge, they were black blokes, my black fellow mates and some I was related to, they issued nearly 1,000 title deeds. It's not hard to do. In the space of 3.5 years, they issued nearly 1,000. I doubt whether there's been 100 issued in the 30 years since. Now, it is just a terrible reflection upon us as a nation, and it is immoral that we continue to prevent these people from owning their own house. I mean, what conceivable logic would get you to come to the conclusion? I'll tell you what it is. We're looking after you. We will look after you. We will be your protectors. Now, you'll be our jailers. That's what you'll be. And I hate to say it, but the current restrictive nature of what is going on with coronavirus in the First Australian communities, there's going to be some really bad things happening shortly. Because when you tie people down like this, they don't have supermarkets in the sense that you have a supermarket. They don't have a pharmacy. They don't have a news agency or clothing store. They have to go to a town to get all these things. They're not allowed to go to a town. And, don't you realise that? Don't you understand that? Well, things are going to get really bad there. But just, it breaks anyone, decent Australian's heart, if they knew that this paternalism has shackled us and imprisoned us and kept us downtrodden to a point where we are, the shame of my nation is the way that the situation has gone with First Australians. And it is continuing and worsening. They had to close the gap, and they found out the situation was the gap was not closing, it was widening, so they cut down the monitoring. Now, these things are easy to overcome. Just put the market gardens in and make another 10 blocks available. You say, it's too complicated. No, it's not. You're the government of Australia. You just imprisoned us all at our homes. What, you can't take, a couple hundred hectares.
We all know that statistics can be misleading. So are you saying that basically the measures for closing the gap were restricted so that it appeared much greater than what it was?
Look, all I can tell you is when I was a minister, we brought in my own brother blackfellas to run the show. And they immediately worked for the dole. So they mobilised a workforce of 2,000 in Cape York. And there was tremendous force for improvement. establishing skills. 700 of them were employed in a house building program. And almost all of the 700 qualified bricklayers. Quentin Kirsch, famous builders in Townsville, Quentin said he was paying $72 an hour for bricklayers last year. And he'd been from rugby league background, and, we were at the same boarding school, Charterstown. Quentin's a lot younger than me. And, but half his crews are first Australians. Now, those were the gates of opportunity that were opened, and 1,000 people got to own their own little block of land, their own house, their own market garden, their own cattle station, whatever it was. It was just so easy to do it. And, all that happened really was we let the people themselves make the decisions, and we listened to the people and took their advice. And the outcome, I blush to admit it, but the leases are called the cattle leases. So I'm sort of famous forever. What did I do? I just said, what do you want done? They said, we want the land. We want to be able to own land like you white fellas do. So I said, yeah, I can't see any problems with that. What do you blokes reckon? And all the other blokes said, yeah, of course they should. So that's what we did. Well, it wasn't exactly rocket science. I really don't deserve to get some honorary title as a result of something as simple and easy as that. But I don't know, we've lost our humanity. Those Christians that went out there and protected these people and ensured their survival, we've just let them down so badly.
Well, we're on the subject of Townsville. It's often in the media for youth crime, and they talk about more police deploying to Townsville itself. Do you think that's due to a lack of opportunity?
Jordan, there's a dozen reasons, overcrowding in the homes, but lack of opportunity is a very, very good way to put it. You're spot on. Having said that, how do you create the opportunity? Now, we've got the highest crime rate in Australia, although Robbie Cat claims Mount Isa is high still. Cairns not far behind, Mareeba. So what do you do about it? Well, again, there's a very famous book out by Sarah Madison. She said, white fellas will never get it right when it comes to black fellas. And it's a brilliant book because it's absolutely true. So what were we doing here as Australians 200 years ago? Tell you what we're doing. We had banishment. Minor crime, you went out and lived in the bush by yourself until you were prepared to act like a civilised human being, and then and only then you're allowed into a camp. If it was medium crime, speared in the leg, major crime, execution. Now, let's just go back to minor crime.
Yeah.
Like stealing a car. Might have been stealing a kangaroo that I killed today and you stole it.
Yeah.
And I said you could eat it and I couldn't eat it. Whatever it was. Banishment, Butchka's the blackfellow name, Butchka. So our party just said, well, why don't we just look the way it was 200 years ago? Reinstitute that. So if we get the balance of power, the government will move. We will move the legislation. The government will pass the legislation restoring Butchka, banishment, which is relocation sentencing. So you play up and be a naughty boy.
Yeah.
You're not living in Townsville anymore. You're living now in Punjabi. What's that? It was halfway between Mount Isa and the Gulf of Carpentaria, in the middle of nowhere. You want to run away? Well, run away. I don't know where you're going to run to, but you can run away. But out there, look, they'll be given a new start, a new opportunity. They can swim in the lake out there. There'll be football games in neighbouring towns and communities. You will get skills like bricklaying that will enable you to make a quid. And you'll build your own housing out there, very simplistic building methods, but extremely high quality accommodation. And you'll have your name on that building. So you can say with pride that I, little Robbie Gatter, that was a naughty boy and played up, I built that. I built that building. And it's a brass plaque. saying Robbie Catter, So, I think that we can reconstruct the future.
That would be a huge undertaking, obviously.
I must emphasise, they're not all first Australians.
Of course.
Yeah. There's a lot of white folks involved as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it cost us $560,000 a year. I'll repeat that slowly. One of those young people put into detention, which is a nice name, prison. One of those young people in prison would cost the taxpayer $560,000 a year. We think we can reduce that to $70,000 a year.
Okay.
For starters, we don't need guards. We don't need oversighting. We don't need the upkeep of wire fencing and everything. If you want to run away, we will run away. And if you make it, well, good luck to you, I suppose. I'm exaggerating, but
yes, of course, yeah. So I shouldn't hold you for too much longer, but before I let you go, is there anything else you want to add, I guess, on the state of politics today and where to go from here?
Yeah, on the coronavirus, it is the opportunity of a lifetime for Scott Morrison to say we have to work out a way. We have to have major public works. We're not going to have absorb money, indulge ourselves with football stadiums and ring roads and tunnels and all these sort of things, and merry-go-rounds and flurry floss. We are going to spend it on hard development. The same, I'm very proud to say, the Jock Peterson governments. They built 6,000 kilometres of railway lines to open up all of the mines in Queensland. There was hardly any mining in Queensland when they were elected as government. By the time they finished, they were one of the biggest mining states, arguably the biggest mining state on Earth. On Earth. Half Australia's entire mining income comes from North Queensland. And that mining wealth was created by the ports. That gentleman rang up and said, where's our superannuation money going? That superannuation money went from building the ports and the railway lines. So the coal could get out. We're a coal importing country when they started. We then became the biggest coal exporting state on Earth. And that coal, 63% of it is North Queensland, my homeland. Hard rock mining, well, outside of Olympic Dam, all the hard rock mining is in North Queensland. I'm exaggerating, but I'm not exaggerating. So the answers lie there. We built the biggest power station in the world, the most efficient. We had the cheapest power in the world because we had reserve resource policy. So we paid $17 a unit for our gas. The rest of the world pays $6 because we had no reserve resource policy. So it goes onto the world market and we've got to pay $16. Whilst the countries we send it to pay $6 because they just need a little bit of topping up. Most of their gas from their own gas fields and they have reserve resource policy. But that gives you cheap electricity, biggest power station in the world. So we're able to get the aluminium industry of Australia out of that Gladstone power station. The beef roads doubled the beef production in Queensland, building those roads into every nook and cranny of the surface area of Queensland. And we were building a dam every year for the last 30 years. There's been a single dam. But let's just be positive and say, as far as I'm concerned, the KP, our state blokes, they're going to seize control of that parliament, balance of power, and they will, please God, use that power ruthlessly to recreate a massive juggernaut of development, prosperity, and freedom. I could go through 30 or 40 laws that have restricted our freedom in Queensland that have been imposed since that much maligned government went down in 1990.
Well, there it is.
And
so
I love my freedom.
As we know, so for you and for the guys in Northern Queensland, when they're looking at you and wondering what should happen next, are you proposing that the government basically strip the restrictions, or what do you think the best protocol is?
Coming back to coronavirus, the first thing that needs is for us to be protected from people coming in from a high contagion area. Brisbane, that's the most important thing to do. Now, I'm not an expert in this field, but I think there's virtually no doctor that have refused to sign or will refuse to sign the document which the doctors have got out saying the government needs urgently to quarantine off regional areas such as North Queensland. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how government continues to defy the entire medical establishment, existing medical regime in North Queensland, and say, we know more than you do, and say that when the only cases we have were the ones through your criminal irresponsibility you created by sending one of your employees lit up like a Christmas tree into the middle of the Cairns Hospital, our greatest protection fortress that we have against coronavirus, and you contaminated. Now, how you have the right to say that we have to stay under house arrest, I don't know. But all I can say is the first Australians are getting very restless, and the newer Australians, the white fellow Australians, they're getting pretty restless too. So just keep defying the people, and we know what happens in the end. We all know that any of us that have read history books, you can find out what happens in the end, and it's pretty ugly.
No worries. Well, we'll wrap up there. Thanks again for your time.
Very great honour.
Thanks for listening to the first episode of Talking Point. You can find us on Instagram at talkingpoint.podcast.